0341, north of Zalizne. A T-80 BVM rolls off the Toretsk service road. Engine steady, thermals open, leading a 34-vehicle wedge that Russia's 8th Guards Combined Arms Army has staked its July offensive on. 200 meters above the mine's spoil heap, a Shark UAV has been watching that road for 11 days. 68 minutes from now, that battalion tactical group will be a burning line on the map. 34 vehicles, mostly BTR-82A and MTLB, with a T-80 BVM platoon up front, gutted before it clears the second tree line. A $500 quadcopter against a $2.5 million main battle tank. The Russians did not know they were already inside the kill box. This is not a lucky ambush, it is a template, one the 47th Separate Mechanized Brigade has been building since the Bradley and drone doctrine made them famous in the winter of 2024. And by minute 68, ISW, Militarnyi, Defense Express, and Astra will all be reporting the same picture from the same coordinates. Before we walk minute by minute through how a full Russian BTG dies at Toretsk, one thing needs saying out loud, because it is the whole story. The 47th knew the wedge was coming 11 days before the wedge did. The first factor is the ground. Toretsk sits on the last defensible line before Kostiantynivka, and Kostiantynivka is the gate to the Sloviansk-Kramatorsk agglomeration. That is the prize the Kremlin has been chasing since 2014. Reopen the Toretsk-Kostiantynivka axis, and Russia's southern grouping finally has an operational reason to still exist. Fail to reopen it before the mudline hardens in October, and the July mobilization wave has been spent on nothing. So when the order came down from Rostov to push north from the Horlivka pocket, the 8th CAA did not have room to be clever. They massed 34 vehicles in a wedge, a T-80 BVM platoon leading, 2 motor rifle companies mounted in BTR-82A behind, MTLB carriers with the mortar section, and a command variant 7 vehicles deep. That is not an assault formation. That is a schedule. The second factor is what the Russians thought they were fighting. According to intercepts flagged by Militarnyi and geolocated by the Ukrainian OSINT collective Exilenova Plus, the 8th CAA's briefing described the 47th sector as degraded, Russian staff shorthand for thin. The 47th, in reality, had just rotated fresh drone teams in from the Chasiv Yar sector, absorbed a new Bohdana self-propelled howitzer platoon under general staff order, and stood up a Vampire heavy drone team on the western flank. The Russians were reading a map 3 weeks out of date. The 47th was reading their column in real time. The third factor is the sensor picture, and this is where the 8th CAA lost the battle days before it began. A Shark reconnaissance UAV, a mid-altitude Ukrainian-built platform with a service ceiling above 3 kilometers and a data link range Defense Express reports at roughly 70 kilometers, had been orbiting the Horlivka approach corridor since late June. It logged the assembly area, it logged the fuel resupply, it logged the T-80 BVMs pulling out of their revetments the night before the push. It logged the medical vehicles moving forward, which is the single most reliable indicator that a Russian formation is about to attack, because Russian tactical medicine always stages before a push, and never after. It logged the fuel bowsers topping off in the tree line west of Horlivka at 2200 the previous evening, and it logged the moment the T-80 BVM platoon's engines cold started at 0215, thermal signatures blooming one after another in a sequence that could only be a pre-movement warm-up. By the time the wedge crossed the Toretsk service road at 341, the 47th's Fire Coordination Cell had a full order of battle, vehicle count, spacing, direction of movement, and the command variants positioned 7 vehicles from the front. The Kremlin's official line, when the losses became undeniable, was that the movement was a planned rotation. An export ban is a confession of shortage. A planned rotation that leaves 34 vehicles burning on the same axis is a confession of something worse, that the southern grouping has run out of ways to hide what it is doing before the drones see it. Minute 3. The lead T-80 BVM crosses a section of road the 47th's engineers had reseeded with anti-tank mines 4 nights earlier. A detail the Russian route reconnaissance, drone denied by Ukrainian jamming, never picked up. The tank's left track separates. The crew, per intercepted radio traffic reported by Astra, calls in a mine strike and requests engineer support. Engineer support is 19 kilometers to the rear. It will not arrive. Minute 8. The FPV nests hidden in the mine, spoil heaps around Zalizne open. This is where the asymmetry engine of this war lives. a $500 quadcopter, a 1-kilogram warhead, an operator in a dugout 6 kilometers away. The second BTR-82A in the column, a vehicle Rosoboron export lists at just under $1 million, bruise up from a hit through the roof. Then the fourth. Then the seventh. The 47th UAV company had positioned 6 FPV teams on overlapping arcs, and the Wedge, tightened by the mined lead vehicle, was running through the exact geometry those arcs were built for. The column tries to reverse. The rear vehicles cannot see what the front vehicles are seeing. That is the moment the Wedge stops being a formation and starts being a queue. Before we go further, one thing worth saying out loud, because it captures the whole shape of this war, and not just this one engagement. These numbers: 34 vehicles, 11 days of intelligence, 68 minutes, come overwhelmingly from Ukrainian brigade reporting, ISW's daily assessment, and Militarnyi's follow-up. Treat them as claims, not confirmed facts. But the direction of the claim holds even when the magnitude is contested, because the Russian side is confirming the same shape of loss in the mirror image. Rybar's Evening Post the day of the engagement described a repeat of the winter mistake. 2 majors admitted the column was struck for over an hour without effective counterfire. TC's July assessment already had the 8th CAA down roughly 40% in assigned motor rifle strength since March. When both sides describe the same collapse, the collapse is real. The argument is only about how bad. Minute 14. The Vampire heavy drone comes in from the west. A Vampire, the Ukrainian nickname for the heavy multi-rotor bomber that carries an anti-tank warhead the size of a mortar shell, does not need to see the whole column. It needs one target. The Shark orbiting overhead has already handed off the command variant's position, a BTR-82AM configured with additional antennas the operator flagged on the first pass. The Vampire drops. The command vehicle stops radiating. From that moment, the Russian side of the engagement has no coordinated voice. Company commanders start making their own decisions. Some try to push through the kill zone. Some try to dismount and scatter into the tree line. Both are wrong answers. The right answer, reverse the entire column back down the service road under smoke, was the one the command vehicle would have ordered if it were still transmitting. Before we go further, a quick reminder, you are watching Fury Military, and this is the kind of engagement we walk through system by system, every week, from the sensor picture to the strike. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Because what happens between minute 22 and minute 61 is not an ambush anymore. It is a demonstration. Minute 18. On the western flank, a second Shark orbiting quietly at 3.5 kilometers picks up the signature the 47th's electronic warfare cell had been waiting for. A Russian Torn MDM, ground-based signals intercept station, lighting up as it tries to triangulate the FPV operator's control frequencies. That Torn MDM is 9 kilometers behind the front, dug in on the southern edge of a shelter belt the 47th's targeting cell had already registered. The Shark passes the coordinates to a second Bohdana section, held in reserve for exactly this kind of target. 2 rounds. The Torn goes off the air. In practice, that means the Russian side has no way to locate the FPV operators by their transmissions, and no way to warn the column that its jamming umbrella has a hole in it. The 47th's operators keep flying. Minute 22. The Bohdana platoon opens fire. Bohdana, the Ukrainian-built 155mm self-propelled howitzer that Militarnyi reports, is now being produced at a rate the General Staff will not publicly confirm, but which industry sources have described as the highest single-system output in the country, is slaved to the Shark's feed through the Kropyva battlefield management system. Kropyva is the software layer that turns a drone operator's screen into a fire mission in under a minute. The first volley walks along the western edge of the stalled column. The second walks back through the middle. By minute 31, the mortar section in the MTLB carriers has been hit before it can dismount its tubes. By minute 42, the T-80 BVM platoon at the front, the platoon that was supposed to punch open the road to Kostiantynivka, has 3 vehicles burning and 1 abandoned, its crew running east on foot through a wheat field the FPV teams are already scanning. Put yourself in the driver's seat of the 11th vehicle in that column. It is 3:50 in the morning. The vehicle ahead of you is on fire. The vehicle behind you is on fire. Your radio is dead because the command variant is dead. Your commander is telling you to reverse, and the vehicle behind you cannot reverse because the vehicle behind him is burning. You have 4 seconds to decide whether to open the hatch and run, or stay inside and hope. In Ukrainian brigade after-action reports collated by United 24 Media, roughly two-thirds of surviving Russian motor rifle crews in engagements like this one chose to run. The FPV teams knew this. They had drones held back specifically for the dismounts. Minute 49. The 47th UAV company commander, working from a dugout east of Zalizne, makes a call that will show up later in brigade, after action reporting. He orders his FPV teams to stop striking the burning vehicles and start striking the ground between the vehicles and the tree line. The logic is cold, and it is correct. A burning BTR is already a combat loss. A running crew is a rifleman who will show up on this axis again in 2 weeks with a new vehicle. So the FPV wall shifts. Small quadcopters, the same $500 frames, but now with fragmentation warheads instead of shaped charges, start walking the wheat field east of the road. This is the part of sensor-driven warfare that does not get shown in the highlight reels, and it is also the part that explains why Russian motor rifle regeneration has been slower in July than the mobilization numbers alone would predict. The vehicles come back, the crews do not. Minute 61. The Bohdana volleys stop. There is nothing left in the column worth a shell. What is left worth a shell is the reserve, a second Russian company that had been holding back 4 kilometers to the south, waiting to exploit the breakthrough the Wedge was supposed to create. That reserve, per Ukrainian brigade reporting, turned around under its own commander's authority and withdrew toward the Horlivka pocket without engaging. That is not cowardice. That is a captain who could see, from 4 kilometers away, that the assumption his orders were built on was wrong. Minute 68. The Shark logs the last stationary vehicle burning, and the 47th's Fire Coordination Cell closes the mission. 34 vehicles. 1 hour and 8 minutes. Now the zoom out, because a single engagement is never just an engagement. This is the second BTG-sized wedge the 8th Guards Combined Arms Army has burned at Toretsk this month. CSIS July running assessment puts the formation at roughly 40% below its assigned motor rifle strength since March 2026, and CSIS is being conservative, counting only vehicles that Russian sources have themselves acknowledged as lost. The real number, from Ukrainian brigade tallies cross-referenced against Exilenova plus geolocated footage, is higher. The 8th CAA is not a peripheral formation. It is the operational-level maneuver army the southern grouping is supposed to build offensives around. When a maneuver army loses 40% of its motor rifle mass in 4 months, and its officer corps starts turning reserve companies around on their own authority, what you are watching is not a slow campaign. You are watching a maneuver arm hollow out in real time. The Kremlin's response, delivered by Peskov the following afternoon, was that the movement had been a planned rotation with tactical success. The Russian-installed governor of the Donetsk region, Denis Pushilin, went further and claimed the axis was under operational control. 2 majors, one of the most read pro-war telegram channels, contradicted both by the end of the day. That is the pattern. The official line and the milblogger line are no longer synchronized, because the milbloggers can see the geolocated footage the same way ISW can, and they have decided that lying to the audience costs them more than embarrassing the ministry. Here is our read. What strikes us about this war in July 2026 is not that Russia is losing engagements. It is that Russia's information system can no longer decide whether to lie about them. That is a system running out of stories at the same time it is running out of vehicles. Question below, and we mean it. Push through the kill zone under fire, or reverse under smoke and lose the assault. Tell us in the comments how you would have called it at 3:50 in the morning with a dead command vehicle. There is one more layer, and it is the one that matters most for what comes next. The 47th did not win this engagement because it had more men, more armor, or more shells. It won because it had 11 days of uncontested sensor coverage over the Horlivka approach corridor, a data link chain from Shark to Kropiva to Bohdana that closed a fire mission in under 60 seconds, and an FPV company patient enough to sit in a mine spoil heap for 11 days, waiting for the Wedge to enter the geometry. This is what sensor-driven warfare looks like. Mass alone no longer wins. What wins is the side that sees first, decides first, and strikes first. Inside a loop the other side cannot close. Russia's 8th CAA lost this engagement in the Rostov staff room the moment they signed off on a wedge formation, moving up a road a Shark had been watching for 11 days. Everything after 341 was arithmetic. Here is the take that will probably get us mail. The honest reading of Toretsk in July 2026 is that the southern grouping's July offensive is already over, and Rostov has not admitted it yet. Not because Ukraine has run out of ground to lose, but because Russia has run out of the specific thing a July offensive requires: trained motor rifle crews willing to mount up in a BTR-82A on an axis where the last two BTGs did not come back. You cannot replace that with mobilization. Mobilization gives you bodies. It does not give you the muscle memory of a driver who has done this before and lived. That is what the 8th CAA lost between March and July. That is what does not come back before the mudline, which raises the forward questions. Can a maneuver army that has lost 40% of its motor rifle strength in 4 months still conduct offensive operations at operational scale? Or is it now, functionally, a fixing force pretending to be an assault force? Can the southern grouping mount a third wedge at Toretsk before October? Or does the July arithmetic force them to shift the main effort further south to Pokrovsk? And if a maneuver arm can be hollowed out this fast by sensor and strike warfare, what does that mean for every other conventional army that has not yet had to fight one? These are the questions the July engagement puts on the table. We will keep walking them, engagement by engagement, on Fury Military. Subscribe so the next one lands in your feed. The point of this analysis isn't to celebrate destruction, but to understand the military and human realities behind it. Because the clearer we see modern war, the clearer the value of deterrence, stability, and a just peace becomes.